If any man among you seemeth to be wise in this world, let him become a fool that he may be wise, Saint Paul said. I am Valery Fadeev, and this is my series Transforming Humanism on overcoming the global political and cultural crisis. Western sociocultural system has almost arrived at the end of its centuries-long grand historical cycle. I will illustrate this cycle with 4 images, 4 works of art, and we will start with the Tretьяков gallery.
В храме святителя Николая в Толмачах.
Then the Church of Saint Nicholas in Tolmachi. This is a house church, and this is part of the Tretьяков gallery. Tretьяков himself used to come here often to pray. This church holds what is probably the most venerated icon of the Russian Orthodox Church, Our Lady of Vladimir. This is an example of what Pitirim Sorokin called ideational art. And certainly this is not just art, this is an icon. This is art that reaches out to higher values. This is sublime art. Icons help those at prayer by offering a physical image of the Savior, or Our Lady, or Saint Nicholas, or other saints. Millions of people have prayed in front of this icon. It is at least 900 years old. God is present in the life of human beings and humanity. Many people think so even today. At the era that Pitirim Sorokin calls ideational, everyone thought so. The second image is Leonardo da Vinci's so-called Vitruvian man. Vitruvius was an ancient Roman architect who created his own system of proportions. Leonardo's drawing represents the proportions of a human body fitted into a circle and in a square. Yet this drawing has a greater meaning. It depicts the harmony of human beings and the universe, with the circle and the square being symbols of the universe. The human being is God's main creation, and now this being is placed in the center of the universe. In this drawing, Leonardo declares the creation of a new humanism. The next step, since humans are intelligent and rational, they discover the laws of nature, and these laws turn out to be immutable. But then, as scientists reason, if these laws are immutable, it means that God created the universe and is no longer involved in its existence. He is not present in our life. God is like an architect. He sets down the laws, and they now guide the life of the universe. Consequently, our rational mind tells us that the world cannot possibly have anything mystical or anything supernatural in it. The world is rational and it operates like a machine. That brings us very close to the famous phrase, "I had no need of that hypothesis." This is famous apocryphal story of Napoleon, written a book by the great mathematician and physicist Laplace. Upon finishing it, he told Laplace, "You wrote a very large book about the world, yet never mentioned its creator." Laplace replied, "Sir, I had no need of that hypothesis." The philosopher Nietzsche later closed the chapter on the matter, saying, "God is dead. What does it mean? It means that there are no longer any absolute principles, no divine absolute. Everything is relative. Now every person decides for themselves what is right and what is wrong, what is moral and what is not, what is good and what is evil."
Следующее изображение – это картины талантливого художника.
The next image is evoked by the talented Austrian painter Egon Schiele. He lived in the early 20th century. These are his self-portraits, and they are terrifying. This is still a human being who is now wasted with rotting skin. Looking at this person brings no joy, and the words that come to mind are illness and death.
Слова, болезнь, смерть.
This outstanding painter died very young. He was only 28. A little later, Adolf Hitler visited an exhibition of German expressionists, who, though similar to Schiele both in style and in spirit, Hitler called them degenerates and called their works degenerative art. But these artists were not degenerates. On the contrary, they were very talented, and talented artists, writers and poets have a keen perception of society's life, of the direction the world is moving in. Like Cassandras, they see the future.
Они как Кассандры, они предвидят будущее.
In his dark, terrifying images, Schiele foresaw the future. The artists are not degenerates. This name should be applied to those politicians, capitalists, the elite that led society and the world into the war, brought Hitler to power, and Hitler started the horrifying slaughter, World War II. And finally, the first image, Marilyn Monroe by the American artist Andy Warhol. Strictly speaking, this is not a portrait, this is a poster for one of Monroe's films, but this poster was copied many times and nicely colored. Andy Warhol liked making many copies of different things, not only celebrities' portraits. His most famous work is Campbell's Soup Can, and this is his statement. Marilyn Monroe now is not a real person, not a real star. This is a label. Portraits no longer exist because customers consume and buy on the market many things, including movies and, in this case, an image of Marilyn Monroe. Buying and consuming art is no different from buying and consuming Campbell's soup. Only labels are left now. The living human being is no longer there. Today, as social networks blossom, we find ourselves in the same situation. Avatars that are present on the internet are not human beings, are not personalities. An avatar may represent something that the real person is not.
Высказывание Уорхола очень жесткое.
Warhol makes a very harsh statement. It is even harsher than Malevich's famous Black Square. Malevich pinpointed the end of pictorial art as it existed for millennia in different shapes. Warhol pinpoints the disappearance of the human being as such as a subject, as the main subject of art. Human beings no longer inspire artists.
Человек теперь не вдохновляет художника.
European culture has fully completed its grand cycle from Leonardo's Vitruvian Man to Warhol's Marilyn Monroe. And if there is no human being, what kind of humanism can we talk about?
То какой уж тут гуманизм? тенденции по Сорокину, которые станут преобладать в это
Sorokin predicts that this difficult time of the Western supersystem, coming to the end of its life cycle, will be dominated by several trends. Moral values erode, people no longer know good from evil, society fractures into small groups with no common value platform. That in turn makes it impossible for states to implement an integral policy shared by the majority of citizens. The family as a union of a man and a woman collapses. Contract law dissolves, political tyrannies abound, human rights are ignored, riots and revolutions come in waves. As we look at this list, Sorokin's prediction is coming true almost in its entirety. Maybe the waves of riots and revolutions have not yet reached the West, but the collapse of the family, inability to tell good from evil, the great sociologist Pitirim Sorokin predicted it all 70 years ago.
Великие изобретения 20 века, второй половины 20 века, это, конечно, компьютер.
The computer and the internet are great inventions on the second half of the 20th century, and they have a tremendous effect on our life today. Back in the 19th and 20th centuries, scientific discoveries and inventions, or as we say today, technological innovations, radically changed human life. These changes would start in the largest European cities and then spread to smaller places. The decades before World War I were called the Belle Epoque. Those several decades of beautiful European life, the decades which created a new way of life that had never existed before.
Задали иной стиль жизни вообще, такой, которого не было раньше. Вспомните.
Think about Alexander Ostrovsky's play Without a Dowry. Everyone knows Eldar Ryazanov's film A Cruel Romance. The play was published in 1879. The merchant Knurov wins the girl Larissa from his friend in a coin toss and tempts her with a trip to Paris.
Соблазняет ее поехать в Париж.
Лариса Дмитриевна, выслушайте меня и не обижайтесь. Не угодно ли вам ехать со мной в Париж на выставку?
Кнуров зовет Ларису Дмитриевну в Париж на всемирную.
He invites Larissa to travel with him to the World Fair in Paris, the world's most fashionable place at the time. The fair saw 16 million visitors. 16 million visitors. 11 years later, another fair in Paris saw 32 million visitors. Specifically for this fair, the engineer Eiffel built the 300-meter Eiffel Tower that would become the symbol of Paris. This is a very elaborate edifice, and building such a tower would be difficult even today, despite all our technological achievements. Millions of people have now gained access to things that were previously accessible to thousands, maybe to a few millions in all of Europe. The middle class, the way of life we know today, began to emerge. What is that way of life? Beautiful boulevards filled with elegant public, well-lit streets. First those were kerosene lights, then electric lights. Streets filled with hansom, then taxis appeared. In the 1910s and even in the 1900s in Paris, taxis already the transportation we know today. There were morning and evening newspapers, cafes for the general public to spend time in, read newspapers and learn the news. This is culture, theaters, actors, artists, writers, poets. This beautiful life served as an example for Europe and for that part of the world which had the money to practice this lifestyle.
И вдруг все это очарование глянцевой толпы, иногда изысканное, утонченное, иногда мещанское,
Suddenly, this charm of the glamorous crowd, the charm that was sometimes elegant and sophisticated and sometimes Philistine and vulgar, but still cute, as young people say, this charm was gone because World War I broke out and men went to the trenches to start killing each other. Technological innovations and inventions were now used for killing. Tanks, machine guns, gases, everything that had been invented in the 19th century was now a means of killing. The World War did not end with the truce in 1918. World War II started 20 years later. These two wars took the lives of 100 million people. That marked the end of tremendous era that saw humanism emerge and triumph in the Western world.
Гуманизма западного мира.